Hello, I'm Kerr. Welcome to my art studio. Black watercolour paint, and should we use it? Well, in this video we're going to have a look at the properties of black watercolour paint before we make that decision. So, are you ready? Now, I don't know about you, but I often hear, well, not often, but I sometimes hear people saying, oh, you shouldn't use black paint or you shouldn't use white paint. Well, I would ask why. So in order to answer that question as to whether we should or not use black paint, let's have a look at the properties of black paint before we make that decision. So let's have a look at some different blacks and see how they vary. Now, I don't have a lot of black paint in my collection, so I can only use the ones that I've got to demonstrate. So bear with me, but I think it'll be enough information for you. Now, there are two kinds of black paint. One kind has only one pigment, and the other kind has a multiple of pigments. For example, this one is lunar black, and it only has one pigment. This one is a neutral tint, which is made from black, blue and violet, and you can clearly see the difference. With this one you can go all the way from almost white paper right up to a really dense dark black. And with the one that's got multiple pigments in it, can you see here that the blue is gradually coming through? And here you can almost pick out the violet coming through. And then as you get up towards the other end, you've almost got a dark black as the one that's got the single pigment. Now, there are many different types of black. There's Mars black, ivory black, lamp black, jet black, and I could go on. And each manufacturer will make them slightly differently. So it is a bit of a minefield out there. But the way to choose a black, if you want one, you have to think of three things. Do you want one that's only got one pigment, so it stays black all the time? Do you want one that has multiple pigments, so you can see a variety of shades coming through? So that's the first choice. The second choice is, do you want it to be granulating or not granulating? And by granulating, I mean all the little particles stick together in little groups, and it causes a sort of spotty effect. This is the same paint as this, but it's done on smooth paper, so it shows up the granulation much better. So whether or not it's granulating is the second choice. And the third choice you need to consider if you're buying one is it a staining paint? Because some blacks will stain and some blacks don't stain. So those three things have to be considered if you're going to buy a black paint. Okay, so what could we use the different types of black paint for? Well, most black watercolours are really good mixers, so you can use them to darken some of your colours. You could also use them to create moody, atmospheric paintings. If you're doing something like a tonal value painting, fantastic for that. What about the one that's got multicolours in it? Well, if you're doing a monochrome paintings, in other words, you're painting a picture in just one colour, how lovely that would be, because you've got the blue coming through, the purple coming through, and you can get a really dark black at the end. So they both have their uses. If we look at this one, which is the neutral tint, now some of you will recognise this. Let's put that out of the way. Now, this is what I did when I did my video on shadows. So I'm just going to cover up the top bit and the bottom bit, because that's not relevant to this particular video. This is the bit that's relevant. Because here we mentioned neutral tint. And this neutral tint, here it is. And that neutral tint was used to make shadows or glazes over other colours. And how wonderfully useful that is in a painting. You could use black to make shadows, but neutral tint, because it contains other colours, just gives that lovely, interesting look to cast a shadow over a different colour. So we know that some black paints contain only one pigment, other black paints contain several pigments. So can we make our own black paint? Yes, we can. Let me show you. Now, if we were going to be painting a picture of, say, a black dog or a black flower, and yes, we do have black flowers. This is a beautiful black lily. If you look at the dog, if you look carefully at the fur, you can see all kinds of colours coming through. It's not just black. You can see blues, greys, browns, reds, and all those, especially if the sun is shining on the animal, all these colours you can see within the black. It's not just a dead black colour. Also with these beautiful, beautiful flowers. Look at the red that's coming through here, and the blue, and the greys, and the blacks. So you might think, well, how on earth can we do that if we're just painting a black object? Well, you do that by mixing your own colours. And let me show you. Now, as I'm sure you know, that when you mix up yellow, red, and blue, you get a neutral. So here I've got quinacridone gold, pyroline maroon, and the good old ultramarine blue. Now, if we mix those together, we should get a neutral. There we go. A little more blue. Now, if I paint that onto the paper, yes, we've got virtually a lovely black. Now, if I push that towards the red, can you see we've got this red tinge coming in? I'm going to water it down a little bit because on the camera you may not spot that. It's not until it starts to dry that you'll see these colours coming through. Push that towards the yellow now, so we're going to get a browny colour. Push it back towards the blue. Now let's go into, push it up again towards the red. So can you see how we can make black, but we can make it much more exciting? Let me water those down a little so they, only for the sake of the camera, so you can actually pick up the individual colours. Excuse me. There, can you see the red tinge here, the blue tinge there, the yellow tinge there? But it still gives you the overall impression that it's black. Now, how much more exciting is painting something in black that way than just picking up, let me find it here, picking up a tube of black and just having a dead colour like that. I'm not saying there aren't reasons for using this. We've just discovered that there are some lovely times when you want to use a plain black like that. But when you're painting something that contains many other colours, like the fur of the dog or these lovely, lovely lilies, then this way of doing it, where you're mixing your own black, can make life so much more exciting. Give that a try. It doesn't really matter which red, yellow and blue you use. You will obviously get different results. But here, if I was doing this, I would choose a cool red, more or less like the one I've got here. Maybe if I was doing the dog, where you've got this sort of yellowy, orangey red, I may choose a warmer red. Now there is something else I'd like to show you with black that you may or may not know. Now here I've got a lovely bright yellow. It's Hansa Yellow Medium. So if I take my yellow, that's a beautiful rich yellow, and if I pick up a little bit of black, you don't need much, can you see what's happening? I have got the most beautiful green. Let me paint that on the paper for you. Black and yellow make green. So if you were using black to darken a colour, which you can with many colours, you obviously can't use it to darken yellow because it will just turn green. But I very often see landscape paintings where the greens are very unnatural, very sort of gaudy looking. This is a wonderful way of making a green that's much more like the greens you find in nature. Let me add a little bit more black to that. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? And just two colours. Let's go on adding some black. Make it even darker. Look. Now, because they've all been made with the same yellow, they have that harmony about them. Rather than mixing up a light green, a medium green and a dark green with different blues and different yellows, look at the harmony you've got with those three greens. Now what you could do with the original mix, if you wanted to change it a lot, you could pick up a little bit of blue. Let's have some blue from our ultramarine up here. Let's add a little bit of blue to that. And here you're going to be altering it again. So think about that. Sometimes when you're mixing greens and you're thinking that your greens, you know, they all look a bit disjointed and they don't hold together very well. Well, why not try using yellow and black in different proportions and maybe adjusting it very slightly with either some blue, or we could try adjusting it with a little bit of red as well. Let's pick up a bit of the red that we had. Do you see what I mean? Here we are, I've done a few more for you, and there's a much darker version of that one. So some quite magical things you can do with just mixing yellow and black, and maybe adding a little bit of blue or a little bit of red just to change the flavour slightly. But quite an exciting thing to do. Give it a try. So the question at the beginning of the video was, should we use black watercolour? And the answer is absolutely. Of course we can. We can either use it straight from the tube or the pan. We can mix our own black from red, yellow and blue. And we can use black to mix with yellow to make a lovely variety of greens. If this video has been useful for you and you'd like more videos like this, then consider clicking that subscribe button and the little bell icon, because that lets you know when I upload another video for you. If you've enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. And remember, there is an artist in everyone. Goodbye for now.